This is the Scuba Educational Alliance Ocean Podcast, Episode 21. The Scuba Educational Alliance Ocean Podcast is a bi-weekly podcast dedicated to the world of scuba diving, ocean health, sustainability, and fostering a new generation of ocean stewards through diving education. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to this latest episode. I'm Jeff Centropino, your host and the founder and president of the Scuba Educational Alliance of Connecticut. Our mission is to foster a new generation of ocean stewards through scuba diving training and education. Well, after a pretty dismal, cool, and wet spring, it seems that as soon as the season flipped to summer, the switch to the heat was also flipped on as well. We've had some pretty hot days up here in New England, and I see that the rest of the country is also heating up. We did miss the really miserable days last week as we were down on Cayman Brac for our week of diving with Dive Pirates. And happy 4th of July. Time for some burgers, dogs, potato salad, and ice cream pie. Got the menu all set and I'll be firing up the Blackstone tomorrow. Looks like we're in for some really fine weather. On today's show, I'm going to be skipping my news and information update because I want to give you an in-depth look at what becoming a dive pirate is all about. So let's get started. I think I first really noticed dive pirates at the DEMA show in 2017, but I never really thought much about what they really did other than knowing it had something to do with working with divers who had disabilities. At the time, I was up to my eyeballs with running the dive shop and trying to keep afloat. And every subsequent year, I'd see them at the show, but never really had the chance to stop and talk. In 2023, Dive Pirates received a DEMA Community Champions Award. They all showed up in their multicolored jackets and told their brief story about how they were making a difference. That planted the seed of wanting to learn more, but it took a while, however. After the 2023 DEMA show, my focus turned towards the next chapter in life, retirement from the dive shop, which meant selling the business. Fortunately, we were able to close the deal, transition, and begin a new phase, a phase that included some involvement in diving. Having the nonprofit would keep me involved, and I still had another year and a half as a member of the DEMA board. Then, in October last year, Donna and I led the dive shop's trip to Cayman Brac. And while at the Cayman Brac Beach Resort, I noticed all the pictures from many Dive Pirates trips to the resort, along with all their merchandise in the store. As I prepared for the 2024 DEMA show in Las Vegas, I made a mental note that this year I would finally stop and talk with Dive Pirates, and that is where I met Helen Armstrong, their marketing and business development lead. I explained to Helen that I was interested in being a part of something like this, volunteering and learning more. That's when she gave me the information about the Dive Pirates trip to the Cayman Brac in June 2025. Hey, we both liked the Brac, and it sounded like a great opportunity. As the calendar flipped to 2025, Donna and I talked about the idea of being a part of the group. We both thought it would be a great experience and a way to expand our diving horizons. So we signed up. I reached out to Helen and let her know that we were coming and that we wanted to learn and be useful. She got right back to us and set up a Zoom call for us to meet, get to know one another, and talk about the training. We decided that the best course of action for us would be to both get our SDI Scubility Adaptive Dive Buddy certification while on the trip. More to come on that in a few minutes. About 6 weeks before the trip, we received our official Dive Pirates trip package from Susan DeVoe, the executive director of the foundation. Lots of pirate booty in that small box, including our 2025 shirt, a very nice rash guard, and a roster of the folks on the trip, along with our boat assignments. The group would fill 3 of the Reef Divers 46-foot Newtons. Soon after our package arrived, we heard from our boat captain, Greg Wentworth, who is the outgoing president of Dive Pirates. He set up a virtual meeting for our boat. The big takeaway was to create a team name around the trip's theme, Superheroes Unite. Keeping with the Reef Diver boat names that include sister, our boat would be Ninja Sister. Our superheroes, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. A few days before we left, we started our training. Helen arranged a meeting where we would review all of the knowledge development work associated with the course. That set the stage for our practical exercises that would be conducted while in the Caymans. And now it was time to go. We left Hartford, Connecticut very early on Saturday morning, 5:37 a.m. to be exact. That meant heading to the airport around 3 a.m. just to be safe, because you never know what to expect these days. I prefer earlier flights, that way if something gets delayed or canceled, there are more options to recover. We didn't have any issues getting to Miami and then on to Grand Cayman, where we were checked in on our Cayman Airways flight over to the BRAC. Our layover in Grand Cayman was about 4 hours, and we waited for the Dive Pirate crew to arrive. The plan was for folks to wear their trip shirts, and by the time the flight was called, we began to meet the rest of the crew. One of the things about being part of this group is that you very early on begin to take note of the challenges that individuals with physical disabilities face. The world is not very accommodating to people who are confined to a wheelchair. You start to see the barriers that they have to overcome, and you begin to see things differently. Now, one of the reasons the Dive Pirates go to the Cayman Brac Beach Resort is because it is very accessible to individuals with disabilities. I was talking to Jason Belport, who oversees the Clearly Cayman Resorts, and he told me that when they did the renovations to the Brac Beach Resort, they had Dive Pirates in mind and made it very accommodating for wheelchair access. The Dive Pirates include more than just divers who are in wheelchairs. There are divers who are amputees or have other physical disabilities. In the past, they have had divers who are blind. Their motto is, "We no longer see disabilities, we see possibilities." How it works is that each year the foundation funds a diver with a physical disability and their buddy to complete their training with an affiliated Dive Pirate dive shop. They fund the coursework and equipment. Then if the diver wants to go on a trip, they do some additional fundraising to pay for the week. For our trip this year, there were 4 2025 recipients who made the trip. I think they had quite a few more than that who actually did the program. They also have scholarships awarded by various organizations, and there were 2 scholarship winners on this trip. And finally, there are the past recipients who decide to make the trip and pay for it themselves. In 2025, 6 former recipients made the journey. As I mentioned, this was so much more than a week of diving for us. It was a learning experience from the get-go, first by observation and then by participation. There's a teamwork involved in every aspect. There's a choreography necessary to safely get a wheelchair onto the boat. You quickly learn the correct positioning and where to grab onto the chair. Hint, you don't want to grab the wheels. From there, it's all about the preparation for the dive, from getting the diver into their wetsuit and to the platform on the back of the boat, geared up, and then into the water. Teamwork at its best. Once underwater, you cannot help but feel good watching the individuals who were so constrained by their disability being free of gravity and moving through the water. Big smiles at every turn. And then, when it's time to get out of the water, the team goes back into action using the mesh sling to safely lift the diver. This is one of the critical moments, especially if there are any swells and the boat is bouncing up and down. Again, choreography of a proper lift is necessary. Our training took place in the afternoons. We had a series of exercises to perform. One of the exercises for us was to understand what it would be like to be a diver without the use of our legs or arms. We then worked as a team with several others in the class and rotated around positions of a dive team for a quadriplegic diver. Again, the planning is intensive. Think about how you're going to assist someone in clearing their ears, or how you will be able to communicate with them when hand signals are not an option. After completing these dives, we then assisted in the real world, and we wrapped up our training for a sight-impaired diver. We were blindfolded and had to lead a diver to the boat, into their gear, into the water, and finally complete a blindfolded dive, both as the leader and the blind diver. The Dive Pirates trainers, both Helen and Greg, really put us through our paces, and we are now certified SDI Scubility Adaptive Dive Buddies. It has put a whole new light into our diving. On Wednesday, there was an underwater wedding. Yes, last year, a couple took the course, went on the trip, and came back this year engaged and ready to tie the knot. He was a recipient last year and is confined to a wheelchair, and she is his dive buddy. And now they're married. Quite the story. They were playing the Love Boat theme song as they boarded the boat for their trip to the dive site. The Dive Pirates trip is more than just diving. It's camaraderie and fun. Everyone has a pirate name. Mine is Gundeck Jeff. You can just call me Gundeck for short. And then there is the costume party. Unfortunately, we had a monsoon blow through the night of the party, and it was switched to a costume parade on Friday before dinner. Some of the folks really go all out. Me, I just wore a Ninja Turtle shirt and a do-rag. The Reef Divers crew were the judges for the parade, and somehow, some way, our boat won bragging rights. I think the fix was in for the president. We also did a fish ID course and screened a film titled Last Dive. Not the one you're probably thinking about, but it's about a guy who used to dive with manta rays off of Baja, and he wanted to go out and find one of the mantas he used to dive with. Mixed emotions on that one. If you happen to catch it, you'll know why. Friday night was also the trip award party. Each boat recognizes the accomplishments of the divers. That's where we got our official Dive Buddy certification. A nice way to wrap things up before our barbecue dinner by the pool. Our week wrapped up with a very long day of travel back to Connecticut. We left the resort at 5 a.m. for a 7 a.m. flight over to Grand Cayman, and then waited until 3:15 p.m. for our American flight to Miami. One of the things about these airlines is that they keep changing the flight times. Originally, we were supposed to fly out at around 1 o'clock. The change now meant that we wouldn't get home until after midnight. Heck, I could have gone to Singapore in that amount of time. Oh well, that's coming later this year. So now I can say that I am a dive pirate. And I can also say that I am very happy that I took this path. We are now part of another family in the dive community. The Dive Pirates are now planning their 2026 trip, and I hear that it will most likely be to Bonaire, where they'll be staying at the Divi Flamingo. Donna and I are pretty sure that we'll be joining them for this trip and continue to be pirates who see possibilities, not disabilities. Now that was truly a rewarding trip, and to see the big smiles on all the divers makes you feel good about what they've all accomplished. If you have a chance to do something like this, you won't be disappointed. Well, that wraps up this latest episode, and I'll be back in a couple of weeks with more. Until then, enjoy the summer. This has been the Scuba Educational Alliance Ocean Podcast, a show dedicated to the world of scuba diving, ocean health, sustainability, and fostering a new generation of ocean stewards through diving education. Talk to you again real soon.